Hello, welcome to the Euphoria podcast. This is episode 6, season 10. I forget sometimes. It all blurs together, I'll be honest.
It does. Also, this is a public announcement. Please check your posture as you're watching this video. I don't want legs in the air. I don't want slouching chairs. I don't want you to have the sofa laying down with your neck on their back, like this.
I mean, I feel like last
week...
week...
Sit straight, sit up, in for a bang-up podcast. Strap yourself in.
That's good advice. Yankos put us to shame last week in the posture department. He had very
crazy.
Good posture. I didn't even notice until YouTube comments pointed it out.
The madman is like this and then non-stop talking for 1 hour. Yeah. Legend.
Absolute
it's
legend.
So easy to do a podcast when the guest just talks. It's like...
yeah, Yankos is a goated guest. Shout out to Yankos again. Glad that he and G2 were able to have a good week, and we'll talk a lot about week 5 coming up. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. We're available in the same places. Week 5 crazy. We're going to talk a little bit about week 5. We're going to talk about 4 seeds for Worlds. We'll talk a little bit about the international competition, what we're looking at, and specifically if we could pick right now, based on what we've seen, who we would send to Worlds, and also who we just predict will probably make it. Because sometimes those lists are not the same list. Ultimately, whoever qualifies will obviously have earned it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. For now, though, last week we had a cold open. There was that people seemed to like, which I'm very happy about because it was simultaneously the worst and best song that I've ever had the pleasure of working on / creating. The Excel, I'm so sorry that I doubted. For those of you who have it stuck in your head, which happened to a few of my colleagues in the creation process, I apologize.
Yeah. Video was good.
Yeah, the video. Want to shout out to my boy here, Mark Lamont, who was pulled in to participate in this video. And was, had a guitar solo.
Yeah, I do have a guitar solo.
Which he nailed. Yeah. You haven't seen the video.
Every single note that's live played.
Rhythm just flawlessly.
Learned the whole thing.
Mickey X piano solo. What's hilarious is, okay, this is the best part. Mickey can play piano and he actually learned the solo. But the way we filmed it was a little bit scuffed. Your guitar solo, you just nailed the rhythm and you're hitting random shit.
One take rhythm monster.
Yeah, but but for people who don't know how to play the guitar, it just really, for at least a moment, looks like you just are actually going off. Like you know what you're doing. Like you're just like ga 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 ga.
Yeah, I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah. So for context, this entire shoot, shout out to our video team, shout out to Christian and team. They put this together. They just rented a random apartment. We sent them some 90s romance reference videos and they just made the shoot happen. It was very hectic. It was chaotic. It was, but it was a damn good time.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad people liked it.
Yeah.
Hopefully Excel is pleased with their song.
It wasn't a song curse either. Or was it a song buff that they went to?
Well, Mickey gave us the credit for song buff, but Mickey's also the homie, so I don't think he would sell us out like that and
Mickey
say
is the homie.
Song curse. But they did have a very good week. All things considered. Obviously, their game against Fnatic was pretty big. And we'll talk about that shortly because that lets us talk about 2 teams. 1, how great Excel is doing. And 2, the difficulties, the trials and tribulations of our boys in orange there on their 18th birthday, having a hard time. Not a great coming-of-age story, I will say. But before we do that, meta, I would say, is one thing we can check in on. And then we'll talk about Fnatic because we've been seeing... Literally, we are so shameless these days. We used to pretend that we weren't just copying from other regions, but every single player we've talked to in the last week on broadcast or otherwise is we're just copying drafts from the LPL.
Yep. Based and true. Based and true. When in doubt, look to the east and copy what they're doing. Took us a while to do it. Poppy and stuff was being played for a couple of weeks before. But yeah, just looking at my results-based analysis here. Poppy, 4-1.
Yep.
Talia 7-2, Gangplank 5-0. Sylas interestingly lost 4 games, so maybe not the EU Sylas, but if you think of the reason Sylas actually became meta was because of top esports, was because of Knight.
Yeah.
Teams were banning it against him specifically because his Sylas is so good. And then what happened in the transition was Chovy then started playing Sylas mid, and then once both LP and LCK quote-unquote started playing Sylas, everyone started playing Sylas because you either ban it or pick it against Chovy and Knight. And teams did both, and then it rose in prio. That's how the champ kind of spiked. And now LEC teams thought, oh, Sylas is really broken. And the reason it also is quite broken is because Gnar blind pick is so common. You take Gnar ult and happy days.
Well, and I think that it seems like we're very happy to blind pick GP, which is obviously a pretty universal trend, but like we pick a lot more. We're blind picking, at least this week, a lot more GP than we were NAR, probably because of the Silas. And the other thing that I really noticed when it came to the Silas is that like the successful Silases that we saw were finding the Talia in a side lane and killing the Talia in a side lane. It was not in the full-on 5v5s where Silas like came out on top.
But then the Talias were killing the Silases, so it's like the whole world was turned upside down.
Yeah, and it's tough. And I mean, like, just a reminder to, you know, if you're a casual player or a professional player, to just read Talia's E. It's confusingly worded, but basically, if you dash in to the E these days, you just get stunned for whatever your dash duration is, plus a little bit of extra. And there were a lot of players on stage this weekend that looked like they were learning that for the first time, despite having scrimmed against this champion a lot.
It's one of those things where the E is in your face, and you think it's going to time out, but you need to time your spell to time it so it times out. So you press it, hoping that it's going to disappear as you're dashing, and you either look extremely stupid, and they get away, or you hit and they don't get away. But if you didn't try, they would have got away anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That doesn't feel like a good value proposition, but because most of what I saw this weekend was people looking dumb. I didn't see a lot of people time it very well.
Hey, an argument's an argument, baby.
Look, I feel you. But yeah, Talia just looks like an absolute powerhouse right now. I mean, it's like the she protect, she attack. You know.
Also, NAR. 2 and 6 on the weekends. If you look at the NAR stats, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? It's ahead in gold. It's on average up around 12.5 to 13 CS in lane at 15. So the piloting or the pilots of this champion are actually winning their lane. Just looks like
keep in mind when
anywhere.
You take averages like that, it's also from all the players who have lost on NAR. So the fact that it has such a big lead across all of the losers of NAR being included, because NAR at this point has a negative win rate in our league, is impressive. I mean, it shows exactly what you're saying, right? It shows that the champion is expected to lane. I think the downside is that with the Gwen changes, and we saw this a lot in the G2 game versus Rogue, it's just like you just get outscaled, and new Gwen especially, really any Gwen. It's just a point in the game where you can't do anything and she just runs you down.
Yeah, the problem you used to have against... not the problem, but what used to happen against Gwen is to use your ult, you had to get auto attacks in, right? So if you R1, you had to auto to get your R2 off, right?
Yep.
So for Gwen to chase you down, she either has to have Ghost and be hitting you while she's chasing you,
yep,
or for her to have a minion wave that she can bounce off of while she's hitting you. But now it's just a 1 second cast time. You know, R1, 1 second.
Yep.
So what she can do is, even without a wave and with distance, she can just instantly like EQR you already, and now you're slowed, and then she just all-in chases you with Ghost, and she doesn't need even to hit auto attack. She can just ult you if you're gap closing away to slow you again. And I mean, you saw Broken Blade do it in the Rogue game, G2 Rogue, where he just ran at Odo Amne on Gnar, all in him, one-shotted him through a tier 3, and Odo had no chance of escaping. So Gwen looks pretty strong right now. A lot of people were skeptical, thinking maybe it's going to be weak, it's nerfed, not so sure.
Well, we didn't really see it, at least day one of LPL playing 12-13, we just, like, Gwen just, like, didn't exist. So I was like, I had heard from pros that it was strong, but I wasn't sure if this was just like EU meta, Keck W, like if it was actually going to show up. And then, obviously, when it did show up, pretty big, pretty impactful, and definitely a champion that like needs to be on people's radar, because obviously top lane blind picks are still all the rage. I still do expect, no pun intended, to see more Gnar, and certainly more GP, as I feel, I don't know if there's something in the water this week, but it felt like the general quality of our GP players was just significantly higher this week.
It was really good. It was really good. And before we follow that rabbit hole, let's look forwards on the meta. What's happening in the LPL now? It's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yep.
What can we expect to see picked in Europe that's being picked in the LPL right now? Sivir. Sivir is pretty high prior right now in the LPL.
Which is hype.
It's being banned on the 1-2-3. RNG played it as well. The champ overall looks incredibly strong. Main change for Sivir is her W, Ricochet, used to only bounce once on a target and then go infinitely to the next target, so it would never come back basically. But now it comes back and it can bounce between 2 different members.
Yeah.
So you have to track it very, very well. Huang Fan's been playing it. He's been playing incredible games on it. So it's being picked a little bit into Aphelios from what I've seen. And the E now heals you rather than giving you mana. But I've seen it mostly into Aphelios off the top of my head. You can stop his ult quite easily, stop any form of engage and stuff like this. Or his, auto Q if you time it right. But yeah, eyes on Sivir. I'm not sure how strong of a blind pick it is. Traditional Sivir counter picks would be things like Caitlyn. Obviously, Sivir's base attack range is really low, so anything that outranges her is really annoying for her. So we'll keep our eyes, see if Caitlyn then becomes meta, because that's how the meta works, right?
Yeah.
Champion gets buffed, it's strong. Poppy, for example, Trundle's being played into it. Then people find counters to it. We've seen Nocturnes, we've seen Morganas into Poppies, finding a counter. Same thing might happen with Sivir after a week or two, where people start playing Caitlyn Karma lanes again. But yeah, no clue what will happen there.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Sivir can do, because I actually haven't watched as many of those LPL games, but I like the changes in theory. I like the fact that if you're fighting two people, it'll just ricochet back and forth between them. I like that Boomerang Blade's cast time decreases with attack speed, makes that ability a lot smoother to use in a fight. Her ult will just keep going if you keep getting kills. Yeah, and in general, I think this is super cool, because Sivir, to me, as a champion, I love AD carries who can really pop off on their own, and AD carries who enable their team. Like, I love that level of utility, especially from, on the hunt. So we'll see. I would like it just also because I find bot lane meta, like, if bot lane meta is interesting, usually the game is interesting. And if bot lane meta is enchanters, and I don't know what Sivir's going to enable, and you can tell me what's going on here, then it's like the game is boring, because if supports aren't playing engaged champions, you know what I mean? And junglers are like, it's like Poppy Trundle. We're just like, we're kind of chilling.
Well, Gala Ming played Sivir Leona.
Hell yeah.
Weibo played it. They played Sivir Rakan.
Hell yeah.
They also played Sivir Nautilus.
Ooh.
So it looks to me now.
The holy trinity, baby. Nautilus, Rakan, Leona.
And BLG managed to beat JDG, which is like our top team in the LPL. I think they're tied second. They managed to take one game off them by playing Sivir Yumi into Aphelios Lulu. So yeah, Sivir is going to be a good one to watch. I think we've got no Reckless in the league anymore, so we're not getting any first pick Sivirs. But it's one of those champs where you can wave clear forever, and you can hold on to a game. Like there are champions in the game that can hold you on for like an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and Nivea is one of them. She will keep you in the game for as long as possible.
And it's important to note that like 4-item Sivir will still be a wave clear monster, but it won't be quite as ludicrously OP as like 4-item Sivir, old Sivir, where she could literally infinitely. It'll still be good, it'll still be strong, but
if you stack in a fight and she's ricochet autoing you, it's just gonna bounce between you. And I've seen this happen so many times.
Well, because you don't need more than 8 bounces in a team fight, right? You need to hit 5 people, so that's just like purely extra damage. But when you're playing the AFK wave clear 6 waves at the time game, that's maybe where it's gonna start to hurt.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I'm excited for it. I mean, another counter to Sivir. Alistar used to be a really good counter to Sivir because you can't spell shield the combo.
Both.
So you'd either spell shield the W and then get knocked up. So Caitlyn, Alistar lanes, these are the things we probably will see into Sivir.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm pumped for Sivir. I'll be honest.
Hell yeah!
I have a follow up, but I'll save it. It's for later. There's something I want. There's a joke I want to use in cast, and I was debating whether or not I should share it here, but I'm gonna save it.
You could probably use both.
Okay, so you know how Hilly's been sprinting it. This was our transition to Fnatic.
Okay.
So when someone goes in and they die as Nautilus, just on their own for no reason.
Okay.
Right? And then they come back to lane. I'm going to call that post-not clarity.
Oh my god. I thought this was related to Syria.
No, it wasn't. I was just thinking about, because you mentioned Nautilus, and then I was like, we're going to talk about
not clarity.
Not clarity. When you leap in, when you like hook, and then like you hit the wall and you instantly die as like a Nautilus or an engaged support.
Like that.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Post not clarity.
Now this is the situation where I'd have one as well prepared, but I really don't. Not as good as that. Post not clarity. I like that. Haley's definitely got a lot of that.
Oh, that's on the edge of appropriateness.
Yeah.
That's in the plausible deniability
zone.
That's where we like to be.
Hey,
I didn't know. I don't know what that sounds like, chat. You can't tell me. I don't know why I heard you was chat. Spending too much time around you. Anyway, speaking of Hillisang running it, it's not just Hillisang, and I don't want this to be the shit on Hillisang show, because I feel like this man, anytime this man has a bad game, people are so ready to roast him, despite the fact that like 90% of his games are so good.
Was it the year of 2020 spring when everyone was saying like, I don't know, there was a split in
Hillisang
is washed, he's trash, he's the worst. And then he goes to Worlds with Reckless, and they're like one of the best bot lanes in the entire tournament.
Yeah. I don't know if it's
over.
This is like the story of Hillisang's career, I feel like, and doubly so on Fnatic, is that like if Hillisang ever starts griefing it, it's like you're just so, and it's like he's a volatile player. He will be a volatile player, but the problem is that people are just like so ready to write him off. But it's like they're standing there with their comment pre-typed in the Reddit thread, like this, waiting for him to die.
Yeah.
You know? And they'll like backspace it up and be like, wow, Hilly, good player, if he like does good, but they're just ready to push enter at a moment's notice, you know?
Yeah, I feel like Hilly is the one player I look at as you hate him or love him depending on how he plays results-based, right? So if he wins, it's like, oh, Hilly!
Genius. No one is the professor. No one else could have thought
and then he dies and loses. Yeah, Inter, I knew all along this guy was washed. Yeah, he's the one player where he's like stark polar opposites from fan sentiment sometimes. Yeah. Now, this is not a excuse the Hilly, because of course that Tahm Kench game was pretty abysmal.
Bad. It was a bad, but again, I think it's when people are like, end this man's career, I draw a line there. If people want to call that game absolute trash, like, fine. That was a bad game.
But telling him to retire and things like this, too far.
So for context here, Excel versus Fnatic, if you missed this game, spoilers, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast if you haven't watched last week, it's totally okay, but you're getting spoilers, as you always will in this game. 26-minute game.
It was brutal.
Absolute smashing. Like, if you took off the nameplates and told me this was an Excel versus BDS game, I would have believed you.
Yeah.
This was total destruction.
And it was lost for Fnatic at a point, but to watch them just mindlessly run around playing solo queue, getting caught one by one, falling like bowling pins, it was really hard to watch because it just looked like there was no direction at all in that team, in that game specifically.
Yeah. And I think what makes it like insult to injury was in our match of the week video, Marcoon had this quote about talking about how they're like, you know, they're not really a team. They're 5 players. They win or lose on the success of their individual players. And I was like, damn, that's a strong statement. You know what I mean? I was like, maybe that's too strong of a statement from Marcoon. And then in their game, they literally all run around like chickens with their heads cut off. Like they literally play like completely individual players. And at a certain point, don't get me wrong, the game was probably lost. They knew it was lost. And so they just started taking flips. Like, I don't know how seriously they took it as they were falling further and further behind. But this game was not a good look. This is not this was a confidence destroying game, I would say, at least for the people watching Fnatic. I can't speak to how the team feel.
Here's my miniature theory for that game. The only thing I can think of is Humanoid and Razork are the only ones who can actually do anything in that game. In most cases, it is mid-jungle, but bot was getting pushed in and Mickey roamed towards mid. But the second Humanoid died a couple of times. It's one of those situations where, as a player, you're 0-2 or 0-3 and you feel like you have no impact in the game. So therefore, you talk less, expecting others to talk more to make plans. But I feel like Humanoid is probably the player who makes the plans for Fnatic. I mean, he does do their mid game, but in the early stages when he's playing Vex with a Wukong, maybe he's the one who's like, I'm going to push mid, I need you to cover me, then I'm going to move to sides, I'm going to try to do something bot. But when that's shut down, they have no direction.
Well, and I also think that simultaneously, while that was also happening, bot lane was also struggling a bit. Like Hylissang overstayed a bit, and then he's going up to mid to help, and then he gets caught, and that's obviously like where the game really falls apart. But like, mid wasn't super in control either. They're playing Aphelios, Tahm Kench for Syra Khan. They're just like, they're on wave clear duty, whatever. Wonder is like in a very losing matchup. You know what I mean? Early on, at least. And it just feels like, unless someone has ironclad like mental and can make clean calls in a game that is in just such a losing state so early on, like I can't even knock it. Because even if it wasn't Humanoid who was the voice, even if you told me any other player was the voice, like everything went wrong for this team in the early game. So it's like, I don't know who you would actually ask to make the calls.
Yeah, then you have like, just thinking of fan sentiment and comments, you have the game against Rogue where Humanoid's got Gale Force on Corki. No one really understands his build because he's got a bit of crit, and then AP Corki's nerfed, so he's building like AD Corki, Manamune with a Gale Force. I haven't really seen the new Corki builds. I'm still seeing people going AP, like the Green Pros, and I'm still seeing a little bit of Essence Reaver-esque builds with Shield Bow.
I guess it's to get away from the Poppy or the barrels or the Azir range. I don't know, because you kind of like that. I agree. Like, I'm not going to over tunnel on the Gale Force, but what I'll say about that game is that like that game honestly, the Rogue game was like close at so many different points. Shout out to Trimby real fast, and the balance team. Renata ult, holy god. Because he hit like 2 Dream Renata ults onto like Humanoid and Upset, and they just killed each other. And Upset like cleansed out. It's like, great, Upset, you're free. Humanoid's audioing you anyway. You're dead.
Yeah,
you're instantly dead. And like, well played. Credit to Rogue. Larson obviously huge pop off. We were excited for his Azir. He did then immediately not have the best game against G2, but sick return to Azir for Larson initially. But it was yeah, the coordination there from Fnatic in that game definitely felt lacking, and certainly Rogue were ready to punish it.
I think the only thing that looks good to me so far in the last weekend was upsets Aphelios. I think was the only like saving grace to them. He was the one who was really helping them win that Rogue game.
Yeah.
Him and Hilly like won their lane and actually moved out a lot. I think they got an early kill onto Trimby in that lane, and then upset was like 2-0. They took a full tower. He was like really far ahead. And then in the XL game, I mean, what is he supposed to do when he's playing? I mean, the Aphelios is a good champ, and Aphelios is a super high prio champ in Asia. If Zeri Lucian are down, then it's always straight to Aphelios. And I think Fnatic picked that up great. They're trying to get ahead of the curve as well and try to understand if they can be a one step ahead or even in the meta. But yeah.
There's a threshold, I think, on Aphelios that's tough. Because, like, obviously he's great from ahead. He's fine at even. And even when he's behind, he can still have great moments with the correct guns. Because, you know, you're just artificially that much more powerful because you're a kid if you have the ideal guns in any given circumstance. But when you're this far behind, you literally cannot approach a wave to auto attack to transition your guns. You're like, there's like a threshold for Aphelios where he becomes like the worst AD carry in the game, where you're like, when you're getting like turbo stomped, because he just has such a hard time recovering, because you can never ever like come back from that point until you're at like 4 items, because you just can't actually walk up to a wave to auto to swap guns.
You know how he said, shout out Trimby, love the Renato ults?
Yep.
Shout out to Trimby indeed. But the day after when he picks Sejuani, unshout out to Trimby.
Oh my god, unshout out to Trimby.
Trimby.
What the? What the hell?
I was excited for the Sedge, but I think there was a better pick there.
Have you heard of Tahm Kench? This was like a man playing in a world where Tahm Kench did not exist.
What was the draft? I think G2 had Tahm Kench.
G2 had Tahm. No. G2 had Tahm.
But
G2,
you're
like,
just playing against it.
Yeah, you're blue side. He's like he just blinded. He blinded Sejuani and then they locked Tahm Kench last. No.
Yeah.
Let me double check the order.
He did blind Sejuani. They last picked Tahm Kench, I think.
And it's like, bruh, like what? Like, you know what? I'm all for creativity. In fact, I love creativity to a fault. Like, if people draft dumb stuff, I'm normally like, hell yeah, let's go, dude. But this was like, who are you? What are you gonna do to the Gwen? Mm-hmm. You're like, you can maybe jump on the Talia, but then like you've also got a Volibear, which is like actually just jungle support, just. Like, Kalista Narazir, wow, great start to the draft, Rogue. You know, Kalista, I'm genuinely skeptical, but, like, Comp's done a good job. You're against Gwen Talia Aphelios, we're neck and neck in the draft. And then the last two picks are such an absolute, like, lore fan 180, I guess we're a Freljord comp, kind of like TFT bullshit. Like, Volibear Sejuani.
Yeah.
Volibear is so nerfed. And, like, look, I still believe, based on what we saw, that it can still be an early game impactful champion, but... Then paired with Sejuani, it's like, what does your team do? Yeah. And we talked about this on the cast. How do you play the game?
Yeah, you have single target damage engage, which a Tahm Kench just basically counters, right? Better 4/5s, you'd have to imagine, are things like maybe Lee Sin Nautilus could work a bit better. Any AD jungler that Malrank's comfortable, and something like the Nautilus where you can actually... Your CC is... It can AoE more than one target, right? You can like hook the Tahm, ult the Aphelios, knock up the Tahm, knock up the Aphelios, and actually make something happen for the Kalista. Whereas the Sejuani just kind of like Q ults in, Tahm Kench eats the target, and then...
And I don't know much about the lane phase, but my assumption is the lane phase isn't great either, because Tahm Kench beats out a lot of the supports that want to go in because he just has so much base damage, and like extended trades are really positive for Tahm Kench, right? And so for Sejuani, it's like you've got your passive, which is like fake Aftershock, and then you've got Aftershock too. So she leaps in. She's super tanky for 3 seconds. Kalista can pull her out post level 6, but pre level 6, it's like Tahm Kench is just there, thwacking away with his tongue, waits for your stacks to fall, cues you for the stun. You're dead. You lose that trade. And like, luckily, Kalista's powerful enough to balance it, but it just doesn't. I make it make sense, Mayor Trombo. What's going on here?
I think I want to see it again, but when Tahm Kench is banned, or if you have a last pick or something, and you're picking it into something like, I don't know what the matchups would be, you know.
And I believe that there was scrim data here to say that this was good, and maybe there's a situation where like they play better around bot side or something, and this like really popped off in scrims. Like I don't think that people just grief draft. I think that people, everyone's biased, you know, and his biases, his experiences in scrims maybe led him to believe that that pick was stronger than it was. Or on the day, someone did not perform the way they performed in scrims. Like, it's hard to say. Obviously, the Sejuani is like a giant bat signal of int, but it's entirely possible that the communication breakdown or the failure actually came in somewhere else in the team or the draft, and it's not the Sejuani to blame. But that is the most visible factor, let's say.
Yeah, agreed. EUphoria MVP?
Yeah, EUphoria MVP. Great question. Wait, do we want to talk about Misfits?
Oh yeah, let's talk about Misfits.
Let's talk about Misfits first, but then we'll talk about EUphoria MVP. So for those who missed it,
breaking news! Bum bum bum! Zlatan has been benched.
Well, his shot has been moved to play in the ERL. Misfits don't have a third jungler, so this is, I guess, the benching, as close to benching as you can get. He was benched. They just tweeted an announcement. Zanzara is moving up. He is their ERL jungler.
So Zanzara is coming in. So yeah, of course, you guys remember Zanzara from Astralis, the Trundle, the Skarner connoisseur. He hasn't been playing that much Trundle or Skarner in the LFL. He's only been playing a little bit of it. He's mostly been playing things like Xin and Poppy. Right now in the LFL, they're 8-8. I haven't been watching any of their games, so I wouldn't be able to give you context. But looking at just raw data, he's not farming much. He's playing for early ganks. And that's what I think Misfits want. Do they want it from a player like Zanzara? I'm not sure how he'll slot in. But you could see in the Vitality game, Zlatan finally picked a champ, which can do something early, Poppy, and he did nothing. And I think that Misfits have been struggling so much in early games that I presume the coaching staff's idea to fix it is just get an early game jungler and put him in there now.
Well, and we don't, and again, like that's just one of what could be many potential reasons. Deficio, I asked him, he wouldn't tell me the reason. He did say that ultimately it was his call, because I know that there was a lot of flame going to the coaching staff, but I think the final decision was his. So if you want to be mean to people, you can be mean to Deficio. He has put himself up there to be roasted. Because it was his decision. No memeing, that's not a joke. That is something that he reached out to me and wanted to make clear because he knew that we were going to talk about this. So we don't know. We don't know officially what happened. It could be the difference in style and what Zanzara would say. I would say that there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, Zanzara's picks are in meta. Trundle, like Poppy, these all feel like Zanzara picks. And that's true. But I think Zanzara's big edge historically was that he was ahead of the curve. It wasn't Zanzara's...
I don't know if he was ahead, but he was on a different curve.
He was on a different curve. I mean, it wasn't... Zanzara's Trundle was good, but it was also that he was the only person playing Trundle. You know what I mean? It was like an edge that he had, that he knew his champion. And big credit to him. I think he's a super smart guy. He really thinks about the game in a way that I find super interesting. Like he was W-maxing before people were W-maxing on Trundle. He was like really doing the research and trying to find a way to exploit these picks to make them work. But when everyone's playing the picks, I don't think that he is a cut above most junglers in the league. So I like your angle. I like that maybe Misfits are looking for more early aggression. Misfits' early game was statistically quite bad, but it's hard to say what exactly happened here. It could have been personality conflicts. It could have been... I could have been that they really won an all Polish LFL squad. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that info. I don't have that context. So all we can do is look at the roster as it is now and analyze how we expect them to do this weekend. They play Rogue and Excel this week.
I've been through...
Rogue and SK this week.
I've been through a few teams where players around me are being benched. And I guess the main reasons are either you're not clicking with the team, whether it's you're not like spending time or fitting in, or you're just not bringing a good environment to the team.
Yep.
You're either being really toxic or you have a really big ego and you're like living in your own world where it's like the team wants to do this. And a lot of players, when they receive feedback, can get very defensive. And when they get defensive, they get aggressive. And they're like, why are you picking on me? Like, why is this my fault? And then when you go down that kind of rabbit hole, then you... just bring it just gets worse and worse and worse. So you bring such a bad mood to the team. So it's just inevitable. No matter how good you're playing, you're always going to lose games. And if every game you're losing and you're trying to improve, all you're doing is just trying to defend yourself as if it's like never you're the problem. Then of course it's really hard to improve as a team. Or they just need a different play style and the player can't provide it. Right? There's many reasons why players get benched.
Yeah, and it's if you as a Misfits fan are frustrated, super valid, because this is the struggle of being an esports team. Is that like obviously you want to be as transparent as possible, and I'm showing a little bit here, but bear with me. You want to be as transparent as possible. You want to tell people what's up, but you also don't want to, damage a player's reputation. You don't want to, do anything like they're already swapping a player. They don't need a public scandal too.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's going on here. So I sympathize with the people on Misfits who are obviously getting a lot of flack. I sympathize with the players on the team. I can see from VTO's upside down smiley face tweet that maybe he wasn't pleased with this decision. But ultimately, let's just hope that it works out for Misfits for the players' sake.
Yeah. And you know me. I like to watch every league. I like to watch LPL. I like to watch LSK. I like to be on track with everything that's happening in the world and be one step ahead of the meta. I have
big brain
a little fact for you.
Sure.
Zanzara. I looked at his solo queue account last night just so I knew what he was up to.
Hell yeah.
He played 14 games of Taric jungle in the last 5 days. I'm talking like you open his OPG, it's like 7 in a row, solid, couple champs, another 4. Taric jungle with Ghost and Glacial Augment. Faker was playing Taric mid and Taric top. I've seen junglers talk and whisper about Taric jungle, but no one's ever committed. He's probably the first
build?
jungler.
Is it Iceborne into...
I have no clue.
You have to build the tier item, no?
I have no idea what the build was.
Hold
you can
on.
check it up. I can check it up as well. But it's an interesting one when you're in such a melee-focused meta with things like, for example, Poppy jungle, right? I pick Taric with Ghost. It actually logically kind of makes a bit of sense that it could be a counter where I can like shield and engage. You can't really stun me because I'm just so tanky. And as you're Eing on me, I can just use my E cast buffer to stun you the second you land.
Yep.
And then I can just kind of hit you and heal through your damage because you're a tank.
And to be clear here, it's not just Zanzara. Syncroft Marcoon also played this, admittedly, last week. This has not shown up this week. And again, I'm on LOL VVV, which is my preferred pro builds
site. Good website.
Shout out LOL VVV. Good stuff. It's interesting. Yeah, because I think that the Taric Ultimate is obviously an insanely powerful piece of utility. Is he a great engage champ? No, absolutely not. But paired with any champion with a dash, he can kind of become a pretty good engage champ. And offers a deceptively large amount of sustain. And when he has gold, a pretty decent amount of damage too, because of the way his passive works. Passive is bonus magic damage on your autos after you cast spells and gives you extra attack speed too, so you can really start thwacking. And every time you hit, you get charges back on your Q. So if you're in a game that is an absolute mess of melee characters, it's very bruiser heavy, Taric not only gives you the ulti, which is infinitely more valuable if you can like really reliably get it off, so very good with bruisers who can survive some upfront burst, but also very good in sustained fights because the amount of healing he can do. If you've ever played ARAM Taric, you know this very well, which obviously is my personal. Yeah, I'm not here to tell people that ARAM is the end all be all, but sometimes if you really want to understand how you can exploit a champion, ARAM is often an interesting testing ground.
Yeah, I need to play more ARAM. But yeah, that's it for a champion. You know, maybe see Taric, maybe see Sivir, maybe a little bit of Caedrel into Sivir.
Yeah, but I mean, and then we'll see if that Zanzara's once again ahead of the meta. I think it would be big for the team.
It's a best of one, right?
It's a best
Throw
of
it out
one.
and best of
Throw
one.
it
Why
out.
not?
That's Misfits. We'll see what they can do this coming week. This is a huge week. It's a defining week. Again, it's not the end all be all. There's still going to be 5 more games after this week of games, but we'll just hope that this works out okay for them. They were seemingly on the road to playoffs, rising in form. This is big for SK, who I think are slowly becoming more and more of a dark horse if they can beat this potentially weakened Misfits. But we'll find out.
Yep.
In the meantime, EUphoria MVP. There's some good names on the list this week, Caedrel.
There's a lot of good names. You've got players like Elioya, who had a pretty consistent week. Patrick had some pretty flashy outplays, Unforgiven as well.
Yep.
But I'm leaning towards, to me, Finn. He had two games of GP in a row where I think he had flawless GP games. And you can say, well, for example, he has the highest damage on his team both games, and he has 800 to 850 DPM both games. Well, you can be like, yeah, he's playing GP. But the fact that he's playing his GP so cleanly in Europe against teams like Fnatic as well, who, yes, they're struggling, but he builds full crit GP, doesn't make too many mistakes over side lane.
Yep.
He kind of checks every box. And if you just look at his scoreline over the weekend, I think he was 11-1 on the GP. So I think he had a pretty flawless weekend. He wasn't super flashy, but if you just watch the fights and how much he's doing, a lot of the times you see some GPs where they're ahead, they're fed, they go into a fight, they put a barrel down, they're going to shoot it, enemy kills it. Okay, another barrel, miss, and then the GP just dies. That wasn't Finn's story.
No, he was hitting so many barrels. That's why his DPM is so high. And keep in mind that damage per minute is a very game time biased stat. So if you have longer games, you're going to have better DPM because you just do more damage later in the game. People have more health, you do more damage. So the fact that he's able to maintain such a high DPM in a Fnatic game that was so quick is impressive. Now, it was one-sided, which also makes it easier because he's just probably getting a lot of free damage off. But that is, credit to Finn. I think that obviously the stats are great. They're usually going to be pretty good when you win 2 games. But I think also as well, just like being so far ahead, being the guy who's busting it out as the blind pick and still making it work, essentially making it feel like this uncounterable thing is very impressive, and credit to Finn. I've been pleasantly surprised by his performance. I think we started to see it in the spring, and I think we're continuing to see it in summer. So yeah, I'll grab. I don't know where the pen is. We'll put it on the board later because I don't know where the pen is. Phil has the pen somewhere. Sneaky Phil.
Yeah, we'll write it down.
So yeah, shout out to Finn, our EUphoria MVP for this week, for week 5 of the LEC.
Good job, Finn.
Yeah, we'll play it, brother. Let's look ahead now because we didn't talk about this last week. I don't think we got the update when we were coming in last week. But LoL Esports released an article, League of Legends Worlds 2022 dates and seeding. So again, plans Mexico City, groups and quarters are in New York City, Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia. Shout out to ATL, amazing rap scene. And finals in San Francisco, California. Now, big news.
Big news?
12 of the 24 competitors will start in the play-in stage, including Europe, LEC, third and fourth seed, baby.
Quick question, you probably know the answer to this, but as a viewer, this would be my instant question. Can EU knock EU out of play-ins?
I would assume, wow, we're the only time we've had 2 seeds from the same region.
Yeah, I presume they
without knowing the format, no. I'll do a quick check on
sense.
Last year's format. Without knowing the format, I would say no. But this is the only time where this has happened in plans, as far as I know, and someone can correct me, where we've had two seeds from the same regions in plans. And now groups is designed so that you can't knock another team from another region out. But I don't know if plans is designed in that same way. So that's a damn good question that I'm happy you asked, but now I'm like, damn.
EU fans might be scarred by the Mad Lions play-ins run.
I mean, they'll be put into separate groups, right? Let's just take a look at how last year worked. They'll be put in separate groups. First seed, I think, auto qualifies, and then there's a big bracket for everyone but the 5th seed. So it is, and they play cross group. So there is a chance
that EU knocks EU out of play-ins.
That EU knocks EU out of play-ins. Now,
that's
I'm not going to give anyone the benefit of the doubt here, but we'll see what happens. Maybe they have something in the rules that's adjusted to account for this, or maybe there's something in the existing rules that just has never been used in plans that'll be used here. So that's a good flag, Caedrel. Good point of concern. Competitive ops team, if you're listening, that's a
I'm sure that's something they're looking into. But it's pretty exciting to have 4 seeds at Worlds. I think we talked about it already. It's just really good for the player motivation. I think a lot of the player interviews this last weekend, they were saying, I think it was Finn especially, or Yankos players like this were saying, it just gives a lot of extra motivation because you know that if you have in mind that it's really hard for you to contest 3rd place, but then there's a 4th spot now, 4th is really doable.
Yeah.
Like Misfits, for example, last year finished 3rd in the regular split, right?
Yep.
And that's very difficult. Top 3 is always really hard when you have like the heavy hitters, Fnatic, Rogue, Mad, G2.
Misfits were literally one inspired Viego pentakill away from going to Worlds.
Yeah. And
basically. Or would have been in that context.
And imagine they had a 4th seed, right, last year. Misfits would have gone to Worlds last year if there was a 4th seed. I think. I don't know if there's any championship points or anything there, but I'm pretty sure it would be Misfits.
Yeah, so basically, for those who are confused, so if you remember back the old system, championship points were first seed was always who wins the split, who wins the season easy. Second was whoever had the most championship points, and then the other teams were seeded into a bracket. We don't have a bracket anymore, so how it works is the top 6 teams from summer get points based on where they finish the regular season. Then those are added to the points that they earned from spring, because they did earn points from spring. And then you are seeded based on who has the most points. And this is really important because if you get, especially with 4 seeds, because if you get first seed, you are coming out of the regular season with this seeding. If you get first seed coming into playoffs, you are guaranteed a spot at Worlds. You do not have to win a single best of 5. Now, the system is not designed that way. It's essentially because our bracket is designed to support 3 teams qualifying for Worlds. So it's not really an oversight so much as it is like a unfortunate side effect of getting this bonus seed is that there's a world where, let's just say, for example, G2, they stormed through the rest of the regular season, kicking ass, taking names, and then just grief it in 2 back-to-back best of 5s. They'll still go to Worlds.
Yeah.
Which, obviously will, depending on the team, will upset some people. It is what it is. But it's not just the first seed either. If you are the higher seed that loses in round 1, so for example, let's say first and second go through, right, in our bracket, and if you can't visualize our bracket, feel free to pull up a season, then our 3rd seed, our 3rd place team could auto-qualify for Worlds. Could be that team. Because all you have to do is finish top 4.
Well, we'll see what happens. Exciting stuff. Internationals are always the best part of the year, right? Worlds is always the best part of the year in terms of league competitiveness. I just hope we get good best of 5s. I don't want no LCK quarterfinals. I don't want no LPL semifinals. I want to see cross-region international BO5s.
Here's my question, Mark. I think this is the most interesting discussion. Based on how the year's gone so far, what we saw at MSI from G2, what you're seeing internationally, because you are the, I think between the two of us, most certainly an international expert, and I think probably by all accounts, the person who watches some of the most League of Legends in the world as far as professional broadcast analysts go. What are your expectations for EU right now? Now these can change. I'm not holding you to anything. I don't need you to make any like rock solid prediction here. Like what do you think is like a reasonable expectation for EU at Worlds?
Quarters. I think quarters should be celebrated. Semis would be incredible. I think the thing is you have 8 teams from Asia, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I think the 4 teams from the LPL will get out of groups, I'm convinced. You have so many incredible teams in the LPL right now. They're all, I mean, you could pick one of the top 6 from the LPL right now and they'll probably win Worlds. You have teams like V5, Top Esports, RNG, JDG. These teams are just so... EDG is even 7th right now. This team's struggling a bit. So I think you can pick any of those teams that will probably win Worlds. I think all 4 LPL teams will get out of groups. I think my predictions for the teams that will make Worlds for LPL are probably Top Esports, V5, RNG, and then the last one is up in the air. JDG would be the easy one, but this team normally... I don't want to use the word chokes, but they underperform in playoffs. So when it comes to making the internationals, they struggle. But they would be an expected one. Well, for LCK, however, though, I feel like LCK is right now just so dominated by T1 Gen G that the 3rd and 4th seeds will be the ones that struggle. It'll probably be DRX, Sandbox, or Damwon. One of those 3 teams will be 2 of those. And I think those are the teams that Europe can beat, I think.
Yeah, and shout out to, by the way, our friends over at the LCK. This Saturday is T1 versus Gen G, battle at the top of the table. So keep your eyes open for that if you are an LCK fan at all. And even if you're not, it'll just be a 6 series. Exciting to watch. When I look at this Worlds, to me, the thing that I'm hoping to walk away with, and quarterfinals would be good, I agree, is just a lot of, because we get to send 4 teams, a lot of really high-level practice. Now, in a perfect world, I would have loved to send 4 teams to Korea or 4 teams to China, because sending 4 teams to NA, you're going to have less viable practice partners. Because, for example, when you go to China, you get to scrim Chinese teams that are at Worlds. I think most teams scrim LCK teams that aren't at Worlds.
Most teams are probably boot camp in Korea before they go to NA, I assume.
Sure, and that's a positive start. But like over the course of the tournament, I want teams to gain as much experience as possible, and I think that is easier when you're playing in the best regions in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, when you put this many high-level professional players on the NA ladder, and I don't know if they're going to open up the Challenger queue server.
I was talking about this yesterday. They're going to be on the East Coast, which is where the NA solo queue servers are, and Champions queue is held
in Chicago.
Well, the ping is lower in the East, I believe.
Is it? Maybe. I don't know.
And Champions Queue is hosted in LA, so they won't be using Champions. Champions Queue will close while World is on. And everyone will be on the ladder.
I wonder if they'll open an alternative, or if they're just like, there's so many players on that server that it'll basically be Champions Queue. I think either would be fine.
What is it, 24 teams going to Worlds?
Yeah.
There'll be so many goddamn players, right?
I mean, you could just open Champions Queue, no? You could open like not an LH, like a more central champion. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, regardless, I think that my big hope is that this like really helps level up our region. And I think that there's a really huge chance for development here. I think I'm excited for the teams going through play-ins. Nervous too, because like it's absolutely possible that they get knocked out. Rough life. But excited because I think that there's a lot of chances for our teams to like really, really grow, because I think that the overall level this year has not been fantastic. You know, as a lot of our like titans start to fall down when we lose like teams with a lot of experience, I think that there's always going to be a rebuilding years. Yeah.
I think truth be told, the problem is this year is there's no like heavy hitter European team, which you look at is like that team's going to do well at Worlds. Because right now it's still a mess, right? And hopefully by playoffs we have that heavy hitter where, you know, they have their, you know, the G2 lower bracket run. Yeah. They come in 12-0, you're like, damn, G2 look good. You know, they go into the tournament, they beat T1 on RNG, you're like, damn, EU look great. Yeah. That's all you need. You need that like hope and belief to clutch onto. But I think you're right in saying, I think Europe's going through a developmental phase where the Titans are like, quote unquote Titans, are falling a bit. Rogue and Mad are still consistent, but then you've got teams like Vitality and Misfits and Excel who are like punching their way through, who need international experience or some form of like veterancy to then grow into next year, where hopefully we improve as a region. But right now, I see us probably beating the 3rd or 4th seed from the LCK, sorry.
Yep.
And then if we can beat any other team in a best of 5, then that's incredible.
And I think the immortal struggle of the LPL, and part of the reason why people are often doubting them, despite the fact that in our eyes, and I would hope in everyone's eyes now, with how much that they've won, they're clearly like the best region. It's just that like we've also seen so many LPL teams just like bomb out of groups randomly. Like so many tournament favorites just disappear. Just like not be able to find that consistency on the international stage. So,
yeah, FPX last year, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the setting. So if we go to Worlds and we're in quarters and we draw an RNG or a V5 and we beat that team in a best of 5, I want Europe to go bonkers.
Go nuts.
I want everyone to lose their minds, because right now it's unbelievable how good the LPL look. And if they go to Worlds and they choke or we beat them, then I'm going to let everyone know on Twitter, on socials, how much that means to the region. Not biased,
flex
of course.
on him, dab on him, let him know.
And LCS, I haven't been really following LCS. I think LCS is still a little bit of a mess as well. EG, 100 Thieves, TL are like the front runners, I think, for making Worlds, but we'll see what happens.
Not that like I will figure that out when we get there. I'm not looking at who can compete with us. I'm looking at who can murder us. Like, those are the people that I'm scared of. You know what I mean? That I'm kind of
the stone cold killers.
The stone cold killers, not the people we're gonna go 12 rounds with or whatever. So obviously a lot can come out of this Worlds, and I think if you're looking for EU to grow, it's a huge opportunity for EU to grow. Caedrel's hoping for that Titanic team, and it's just in general, I think it's so important for our region to have a clear number one team, because it helps. They pull the rest of the region up with them. Generally, we don't have that now. It's hard for me to imagine that coming from within the region. There might be a clear number one team, but if that clear number one team isn't like leaps and bounds ahead of people, then it won't be the same effect that it was with G2 in 2019, for example.
Yeah. If I told you, I got a crystal ball and looked into the future, hypothetically, and I said to you, playoffs was close, Rogue won, Mad was in the finals, it was a 3-1. Would you believe in Rogue? That's the thing, because I feel like European fans and in general, if Rogue wins a split or if Mad wins a split,
the belief isn't there.
Yeah, like last year, Rogue lost to C9 in the tiebreaker to get out of groups, right?
Yeah.
Mad, they did get the quarters, but then they bombed out. But the year before that, they didn't even make it out of play-ins, right? So there's no like foundational hope for a European fan to grasp onto unless it's Jankos and Caps.
Yeah, I mean, that's super fair. And maybe that means we need to reevaluate some of our expectations, or maybe they need to help us reevaluate them by like really, really performing. But I'm nervous. So who would you pick? If you could pick, because this is a discussion that's going on. We have this, we planned this discussion, then like the next day a thread popped up on Reddit. So you're probably going to get a lot of this if you're a diehard League fan. But like, you pick 4 teams right now based on what we're seeing, Caedrel, who would you pick?
Just right now, I would pick Rogue, Mad, XL, G2.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a good list. I think that
I think Mad is. I think our third and fourth seed would probably be like XL, and I would. My bold prediction would be G2 would be third or fourth seed.
I don't even know how. I mean, we'll see how bold that is in the weeks to come. But right now, it's like for me, it's like Mad, XL, G2, and part of the G2 prediction is definitely historic success, Caps, Jankos. You know what I mean? And similarly, like a lot of faith in the Mad system. And I think XL are playing very well right now. And the rate at which they grew in their Korean boot camp gives me a lot of faith for them internationally. But like Rogue, very good domestically. But like I think that like no matter how well
Rogue are the JDG of Europe.
Yeah, no matter how well Rogue perform in the regular season, it's how they do in best of fives that I think will ultimately decide if I would pick them. Obviously, that's not how we decide. If it's not just our choice, but if I would just pick them to be there, and then I think the big thing is still Fnatic is. It's hard because Fnatic historically as an org have often seen that big success. And their lineup is full of incredible players. I would argue world-class talent in most cases. Humanoid, Hylissang, Wonder have all proven themselves. Upset hasn't had that chance, but a lot of people would put him on that level. Razork hasn't really had that chance, but again, people would put him on that level. Some people would put him on that level. But it's just such a mess. And to be fair, last time Fnatic was a mess with Adam in the top lane, they did that incredible run to Worlds, which was ultimately bittersweet as Upset had to leave for personal reasons. But so like there's always a chance because G2 did the same thing, right? I don't know what it is with Fnatic and G2. It's like every time you count them out, the plot armor is thick on both of these organizations.
Yeah.
But right now, yeah, I mean, we said it earlier. It's just it's not there, and it's really hard to believe that it will come together in the key moment.
There's some wild cards out there, like I think if Bo joins Vitality in the next couple of weeks, and I think they could make a run to Worlds if they get to playoffs in best of 5. Like if I'm in a best of 5 against you, and I have Haru starting game 1, and then in game 2 we've lost. In game 2 I put in Bo, and he's never played yet, and I've been scrimming with him for 3 weeks. You have no what's about to happen.
Well,
you have no idea what to ban, what he's going to pick. I think that's their way of winning best of 5.
I'm so nervous for Bo because everyone is so hyped for Bo.
Yeah.
because you're talking about him, Dom's talking about all these people, because his win rate's nuts. He's tearing up the ladder. Everyone is hyped for Bo. I feel nervous for Bo because on the one hand, like if he pops off and reveals, it's going to be like the greatest. People are
or they're going to be like, oh, it's
I was
supposed
right,
to happen.
Blah, blah, blah. But then if he comes on stage and bomb, it's instantly going to deflate all of this solo queue hype, I think. Yeah. Which, again, is totally a reasonable thing to do in your first game on stage with a new team. That
I mean, obviously he doesn't speak English, right? That's his biggest flaw. But I think if there's a wild card they have, it's always going to be Bo. And maybe that's it's weird because League's just gone into such a team orientated base game now where like lanes don't matter as much. Junglers, it's very hard for them to find ganks, and it's all about playing from mid to sides to dive or dragon fights. That's it. That's the game. It's big dragon fights, it's cross mapping, or it's playing mid to bot with early game roams. So there's not much room for I'm a psychopath jungler, I'm gonna invade and gank and kill you on every wave or something like this, because it doesn't work as much anymore. Does that mean he can't pull it off? No. But yeah, I think that's Vitality's ticket probably, if they keep up with their inconsistency. Yeah.
And again, if you're like, wow, I have a completely different list of people, I'd be surprised if it was completely different. But if you have a lot of different names in yours, I think that's fine. Because despite everything, while things are getting clearer as we go week to week, our league is still a hot mess. And Yanko said it last week, and I think we'll keep bringing it up because it's just a nice way to summarize our league. Everybody's losing. Rogue and Mad Lions are tied at the top. Excel, sole possession of third for now. You got a three-way tie for sixth between Astralis, Fnatic, and Misfits. Weird three-way tie. Those are not three teams that I ever would have put together. G2 and Vitality, the league, the only reliable thing, sorry, BDS, and we're just not going to talk about BDS a lot on this podcast until they do anything
BDS
else.
Losing?
It's BDS losing. BDS are the most consistent team in our league. Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to... that was a mean joke, but I have to get them every once in a while. And again, if you're like a BDS fan, you're like, why don't they talk more about BDS? Like when they do something, we'll talk about them, but talking about them will almost always result in us just being very negative. So I don't want to just bring them up just to shit on them. But I did this one time because the joke was funny. BDS are the most consistent team in our league.
I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here. I don't know how much they made this public, but I heard an internal bet between two casters. That one bet that SK would make Worlds as the fourth seed, and one bet that they were not.
Who? Wait.
And the loser has to do something on Twitter.
I didn't hear this at all.
Yeah,
I thought you were making a joke, and then because I was concerned, I was
it's real.
I was because we went out the other night. I was like, Caedrel, if you made me commit to a bet while we were under the influence of beverages,
yeah, dude, I'll do it.
And I'm finding out now. I'm going to be very upset.
Do you remember?
You're like, oh, you want to make an SK song too? You want to make a Man Lion? Like, no more songs.
There's a bet in the cast room.
I make SK making Worlds. Slap. We'll see. So friendly, cheerful wager between friends.
Yeah, why not? Who would you? You haven't answered your Worlds for teams.
I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, Mad Lions, Excel.
Actually, I just realized G2. Rogue, Mad, Excel, G2 are our top four.
Yeah. Wow, nice.
I didn't realize that.
Forehead.
I thought G2 was going to be fifth or something.
What do you get paid? I could just hire some Reddit guy to read the top four teams.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that the reality, for me at least, is that you want to see some level of consistency in the gameplay. Which, to be fair, G2 don't have. G2 just have the star power and the historical success that you're willing to believe in them. And in that case, the thing that our top four has done well is not be infallible. But when they win pretty consistently the same way. I would say Mad Lions, early game dominance, Rogue, boom. They're pretty consistent at snowballing. And admittedly, Mad have also thrown 2 games. So there's still weaknesses in all of these teams' games. It's just I don't know. I think consistency is king. And we have so many star-studded rosters. Again, remember back to spring, Team Vitality and Fnatic were the 2 super teams. They were supposed to rule the world. But those names don't mean anything if you can't find that consistency on stage, is what we're, I think, learning more and more domestically. Mm-hmm. Those are the lessons Fnatic and Vitality are teaching us. Sadly, Fnatic are now on a 4-game losing streak. But we'll see in the weeks to come. We'll see what happens. Let's talk a little bit about the week upcoming. We have some big games.
What do we got?
My dude.
Talk to me.
Week 6. It's Friday and Saturday, 29th, 30th. Mad Fnatic, big game in the sense that I think it gives Fnatic an opportunity to rekindle some faith.
Oh, Fnatic just need wins, man.
Turn around their season. They've also got Fnatic BDS, which will still be a Fnatic
I
win.
mean, the last time Fnatic BDS played against each other, the only reason Fnatic won was because they stole a Baron with Zeri Lightning, right?
Oh, yeah.
From Synchrof, which
Oh
the
my
Baron
God.
had healing
I
self-regeneration
forgot
on,
about that.
right? That was self-regeneration Baron heal that saved it
Yeah.
and gave Fnatic a Baron. Maybe the BDS wouldn't have won outright, but I think they were in a pretty good state in that game. So that'll be interesting. Vitality G2, you know what that is? Perks versus Caps.
Part 9, Part 9, Part 8, Part 8.
There's other players.
Brother fights brother in a battle to the death.
Yeah. I don't know what the scoreline is, but I think it's probably Caps.
This is, I think this is one of the most important weeks of the season for Mad Lions. They fight Fnatic and Excel. Again, two teams that are expected to be fighting for slots in the top 6. And if they can beat both of these teams, then Mad would kind of honestly be my shoe-in for number 1 at the end of the regular season, which would be very big for them because they did not make playoffs. So their playoff seeding may not be great in summer, but it will be decent.
And this is the beginning of the BDS miracle run. G2 Fnatic this weekend. They beat both 2-0 on the week. One team, one desire.
And we're doing movie trailers now.
And then they're going to skyrocket their way to playoffs, win a best of 5, take the 4th world seed, represented as worlds, and they're going to clap everyone and win the championship.
Damn.
Stay tuned, kids.
Wow.
It's, I woke up at 7 a.m. when I'm saying this.
Yeah,
Like this.
I was like, wow. It's story time with Mark. You're just out here, like, they call me, they're worried about my narrative. You're over here just...
That's what I noticed every time, ever since I stopped being a pro, my wake-up times have gotten earlier and earlier. It's gone from, like, pro player level of 1 or 2 p.m. to, like, I'm an adult, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Wait, now I'm more of an adult, 9 o'clock. Wait, now I'm even more adult, 7. And then in a couple, 10 years' time, it's going to be 5 a.m. wake-ups.
Now I know BDS stands for Bold Delirious Story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's your bold, delirious story right there.
Yeah.
Here it is, the miracle run. And
is that what they do in the meetings in their daily meetings?
It can happen. It can happen.
No, it can't. No, it can't.
I mean, that's the thing about LEC is, again, everybody's losing. And while BDS have been losing the most, they could turn it around. It could happen.
It's opposite weekend.
It's a possibility. This weekend on the show, myself and Mark will be on the analyst desk alongside our boy Machine. The vibes are going to be... Machina.
We should have Spanish names. We got Machina, Drakos.
Drakos.
You know what they used to call me? Because I got my first Spanish LAN I ever went to in 2015.
What do they call you?
I got a pentakill.
Yeah.
And they went, Pentakill para Caedrel.
Para Caedrel.
Caedrel. I was just like... Yeah, that's not happening for the next split.
They used to call me when I lived in Oaxaca. They called me Daniel El Travieso.
What the... Daniel El Travieso.
I was a little shit, apparently. I don't remember this stuff. Apparently, I used to speak fluent Spanish and be a menace. That's all I know.
BDS, baby.
BDS, baby. Oh, man. The BDS... I love it. There's so many things you could do with that.
Yep.
We're loose. We're loose today. We have a really big, for context, if you're wondering why we're so loopy and why we're here so early, it's just very early for us. We have a big day. We're filming some content piece stuff. We're also doing story meeting because we're on a desk. This week is a messy week for both of us. But hopefully a positive week for our LEC teams. Again, keep your eyes on Mad this week. They play Fnatic and XL. Vitality G2 also going to be a banger.
Is Nilah enabled this weekend?
That is a great question.
I think she is.
As a professional, I'm going to say yes and just hope that I'm correct. If you have not played against Nilah, Nilah is a very interesting champion. She is
Samira 2.0.
Samira-esque. She does some things a little bit differently, but she dodges a lot of auto attacks.
Yeah.
She runs around real fast. She
has Jack's E on her W, basically.
Her E is Jack's W that she can give to her allies.
That she can give to her allies.
Yeah, it's not Samira Windwall in the sense that it'll just delete projectiles. She can still take damage. She gets slightly reduced magic damage. Her Q gives her...
it's a whip.
She hits you with the whip successfully. She gets a little bit more auto range, and she gets a little cleave on her attack. She gets passive armor pen based on her crit and healing, based on her crit chance. Basically...
A lot of things to read.
She's a really good bruiser, and the way that they made sure that she was a marksman and not a bruiser was they just put a lot of incentives for her to build crit items in her kit. So if you've played against her, you know that she can feel incredibly powerful or she can feel totally useless depending on the game that you're playing her in. We'll see what pros do with her. I would actually be surprised. The only way I think she's turbo high priority is if she's absolutely nutso bonkers broken, because her kit is solid, but in this meta of champions who are so good at keeping people at arm's length, like Poppy Talia, it's really hard for me to imagine the melee carry bot laner doing well. That said, Yasuo has seen some play internationally, and he's basically a melee carry bot laner.
So for context, Nilah has been... Everyone's playing her a lot in solo queue. There's Shield Bow or Gale Force builds into full crit. Some people have been playing Death Stance Blade, but we'll leave that for now. I've also seen Nilah mid. I've seen Nilah top. And now it doesn't make sense, you might think, because of her innate kit and the way her passive works.
Passive. But she does have to last hit the minions to share the experience.
Yeah, once she last hits it, she basically enhances the the experience gain for you and your ally, basically. But you have to hit the last hit. So you can get level 6 a lot earlier than every bot. I think it's a minute earlier or a wave or two earlier. You can get level 6. But I'm not sure if we'll see it this weekend. Right now, ever since when it came out, it was incredibly strong. But then it got hotfix like a week and a half ago. And basically, she just got cut on her base stats and her base damage and all that stuff. And right now, her win rate in solo queue is sitting at around 49%. In high-low, of course, it's a bit higher. It's around 50.5. But yeah, I don't know if we'll see her this weekend. The champion in solo queue is pretty bonkers if you can get the right last hits in and your support is like something that can roam. Not so sure. I mean,
read her kit. If you're at home, read her kit. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of wild power in this kit.
On release, Nilah's win rate on release. Now, normally on release, champs win rate is in the 44 to 47% range because no one knows what they're doing. It was 52.5.
Yeah, which is release. Obviously a terrible sign.
But then it got a couple hot fixes, dropped back down to 49, and it went back up again when people were learning it. So the pick rate also went down a lot. So I'm not sure where Nilah sits right now. It had its ups, now it's going through its downs.
We'll find out. Man, I don't know how to feel about this champion. I have seen her in a couple games. I've seen her pop off and be overpowered. I played one game of her and got mostly bodied. I'm not gonna lie, I did really bad. But
I just hope it doesn't. I just hope Nilah doesn't get the Zeri syndrome, where it's like we're gonna patch her 12 times in 9 patches.
Nah, she's totally gonna get the Zeri. I'm sorry, but like the problem.
Also, now actually Zeri has been changed. You ready for this?
Yeah.
13 times now in the next patch. 10 patches, including hotfixes.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So here's the thing. Preface this by saying I'm not a champ designer. I work at Riot, but I don't know anything about how the champ design team works outside of my conversations with them in the past. We've been fortunate enough to have a couple people on the podcast, so I can't say what their thought processes are here. I respect when they try to break the game in interesting ways and create champions who maybe make you reevaluate your expectations. Things like bot lane, melee carries, or short range carries. The problem is that I think these characters are always going to require an insane amount of fine-tuning because you are fundamentally changing the balance of the game, how people expect it to be, how you expect the AD carry role to function, the bot lane carry role to function when you make a champion like this. And obviously, part of the way that they planned on balancing that was the XP gain on her passive to say, hey, look, like we know you're probably going to get stomped on a little bit in the early lane phase. Especially pre-level 3. So bam, we give you a little bit more XP. We're going to balance things out a little bit. Oh, you have a little bit more reliable sustain and armor pen than anyone else has. So maybe you can function, maybe you're going to feel more powerful when you still build these items. And like, I can see the philosophy here. The thing is like getting that to a balanced state is always going to be hard because again, no matter how many people are on the PBE testing this thing, nothing compares to live.
Yeah.
When you have infinite number of players, when you have pro players, and like keep in mind, like the people who test these champions are good at League of Legends, but like Caps is not on the balance team. Caps fighting, like VTO and solo queue games is just not a thing that's going to happen on the balance team. So there's always this next level that appears too. So this champion, I have no doubt in my mind, like maybe there's someday where they just boom, silver bullet a champion like this, but like Yasuo on release is going to be the same thing. Akali on release is going to be the same thing. Whenever you make a champion that breaks the game in a hopefully interesting way, and I think Nilah's kind of that for me, although she's not really my spice as a champion in particular, then it's just gonna take changes, in my opinion. Could be wrong, but I think it's going to just take a bunch of changes over patches to figure out how to get her into that right niche.
Speaking of patch changes, last thing I'll touch on is 12.14 is coming up. I won't dive into it yet, but that'll be probably the big patch before playoffs.
Yeah.
Now the game is very roam heavy right now, a little bit early game heavy. I think it will lean more towards that. Hard to draw conclusions yet, but for example, dragons getting buffed across the board. And then just for context to run you through a few things to expect, health potions getting nerfed. Refillable potions getting nerfed. Teleports getting nerfed, which I think they're reverting. Not sure yet. They haven't decided. Biscuits getting nerfed. Bone plating getting nerfed. Conditioning, second wind, time warp tonic. All these things that help you in lane phase are getting longer cooldowns or reduced healing. So that just means that if you take better trades, it's harder to sustain. For example, if I'm playing Jace against your Kayle, you would take Doran Shield, Second Wind, and you would Biscuits, and you'd sit at your tower.
And you just sit there.
Now they're all a lot weaker. Not a lot weaker, but they are weaker. So I can punish the lane harder. Challenging Smite for junglers, reduced by 10% now. It's not 20% damage, it's only 10. So you're getting
it only took 5 years. God bless.
They finally found us! Who grasped on us, man? Who was it?
We've all been talking about this shit. Why do you get Smite and Exhaust on your stupid, useless summoner? Like, what the hell?
Who told them, man? So basically, TLDR, also Second Herald's getting buffed. It's got like 75% more HP.
That's good.
So basically, what you should expect is the dragons to give you more.
Yep.
And lane phase to mean more. So that innately kind of means that scaling is a bit weaker again. They're also nerfing all the Ardent stuff and Seraphine and stuff like this, and the healing and shielding power from Forbidden Idol and Redemption.
Yeah, I think that the healing, the potion, the TP nerfs say to me that we're going to have a meta at least where lane phase matters a lot more, because it means advantages in lane phase stick, when advantages in lane phase can mean better access to dragons. Dragons are more powerful, so feels to me like they decided that there was a bit too much late game, and they want champions that pack a punch in the early game, or maybe they're trying to get it back to an even state. But
there's so many angles, early ganking lanes now to, like, for example, picking Jarvan and just EQing mid and getting half their HP.
Getting a flash in a pot, like, damn, dude.
It could be bigger. But then there's champs like Azir who scale well but can also punish lanes. So there's also middle ground for having decent scaling but also punishing your lane. I think mostly the health pot changes. I mean, AD carries would go longsword 3 health potions, right? And you would never be able to kill them. So I guess it gives a little bit more room for good trades in bot as well. So yeah, will be interesting. Not out yet, still being tweaked, I presume. But that's probably going to be what the playoffs looks like. And Worlds. I don't know if there's going to be a pre-Worlds patch. Normally there is, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, this is a systems change. So this is a huge patch because champions are going to be different in Worlds. A lot of stuff's going to get buffed or nerfed, maybe, right? Like usually there's big champion balance patches, but systems don't usually change like this mid-season. So this is pretty crazy. But I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what it can do. Because again, I thought the durability patch was cool. It felt really good to play as a casual player. Feels horrendously boring to watch in the first few patches in Pro because it was just so slow. And it's getting better. Team fights are better.
Yeah, team fights are
fun. And I hope that this gets us more into the side of aggression.
Hell yeah. Cool.
Sick. This has been EUphoria. Let us know who you think is going to Worlds. We're going to be back next week.
Tell us a BDS.
More. We're going to be on the desk this weekend, us and Machine. It's basically just going to be like this, but with an additional charming British man.
Narrative. Machine. Let's talk about narrative.
Narrative. It's going to be the narrative power hour. We're going to hang out. We're going to have a good time. It's going to be a good vibe. So join us there, and then we'll see you back here next week for more EUphoria. Keep your eyes on Mad this weekend, as we highlighted earlier, and if you're a Fnatic fan, stay strong.
Stay strong.
Stay strong. And not toxic, man. I mean, come on.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Yep. You just turned 18. You're in the prime of your life, Fnatic. Just keep going.
Hell yeah, 18 in 1 week now.